I'm happy, welcome to everybody. I'm happy to moderate the fourth panel of this 2020 Korčula summer school. And this is the fourth session, each session dealing with specific issues, but all sessions being under the, how can I say, the hat of three words, the three R's: recover, restart, retool. I'm not addressing the three words, but I want to say just one thing about the first two. Recover and restart are unavoidably overlapping. We cannot hope to finish recovering and then restarting. But mainly, I would like to address one aspect of the third R, the retool. I have gone through a very difficult period, being my hometown, Bergamo, particularly hit by the pandemic. And all of us here have had the idea of being in a very dark tunnel, and the exit of the tunnel is still far. But of course, we see a light. But all of us here in Bergamo are aware that at the end of the tunnel, we will come out in a different slope, on a different side of the mountain, and nothing will be like before. And we are deeply aware of this. Everything will be different in our lives. And I do not think that it is only Bergamo's experience to see the world and to have a world totally different. Because we think that this new scenario, changed by the pandemic, will be for all Europe. And Europe, the European Union, is addressing this new scenario with new tools. And I think that there are reasons to be positive. In these 7 months, good decisions were taken, new tools were built, but I think that these new tools are not enough. There are some aspects which have been not properly addressed, and I am thinking of gender. I would say that it is a rather forgotten aspect in these new good decisions. But some good decisions have been taken, and as it is written in the presentation of this panel, indeed, progressive and social democratic principles and positions have been vindicated in these months. But at the same time, this is not time to triumph, and particularly with the problem of gender conceptualization. For example, the idea of a feminist Europe is only within our circles, and the idea of a feminist economy is still to be addressed, and yet Europe, the European Union, is the part of the world where these topics have been addressed more than in any other part of the world. And I would also introduce another concept, the problem of our actions to be effective. We have to focus on not so much or not only on the goals, and we have always had clear goals in our mind, but I think that we have not addressed the transformational process through which we want to reach our goals. And if we do not foresee and we take into consideration the concept of the process in order to get our goals, I think that our action will not be so effective. But in general, I can say that we can see light. And if we compare this pandemic crisis to the crisis of the 2008, 2010, I think that from the comparison, we can see that Europe is doing much better. On the last but one crisis, it took 4 years for Europe to take decisions. In this crisis, 4 months were enough to take decisions. And this is what makes me think of this crisis as a catalytic opportunity. Lots of instruments have been decided. Of course, they have to be implemented, but I think that we are on the right way. It's mainly, so to say, money tools, but not only. Because as social democrat, as progressive, as socialist, in our effort to build the European Union, we have to keep in mind social rights. And we have here a specialist about social rights. Of course, I'm speaking of Maria Joao Rodriguez, who, as she was the mother of another strategy, now I consider Maria the mother of the European pillar of social rights, which was a new chapter in the history of the European Union for a fair and social Europe. I remember the commitment of Gothenburg exactly 3 years ago, November 2017. And I think that we have to have this Gothenburg pillar as a starting point for a new vision and for a new implementation of our social democratic principle. It was the most important initiative to relaunch the social dimension of EU. And I think that Maria is invited to tell us how we can implement in this different scenario, this European pillar of social rights. So Maria does not need to be presented. She is well known, and we started working well with her already last year. So now the floor to Maria. Can you hear me? I can't see anything now. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, now I'm happy to give the floor to Maria Joao Rodriguez.
Maria, unmute yourself. Maria, please unmute your, yes, now you are.
So the sound and the image are okay now?
Oh, no, yeah.
Okay, very good. This is a great pleasure, dear Pia, dear Dacia, dear all the friends there. Yes, I had great reminders of our being together last year in Zagreb, but now we found a way to be together again. It's not the same, but let's make the best of this. And this is indeed a great moment, and I think this conference is extremely well designed. I like very much all the program. and it's really a pleasure now to join you for this particular topic. Look, the message I'm bringing to you is the following. In front of the COVID crisis unfolding, so health crisis, social, economic, political crisis, we progressives, we are taking the lead of shaping the response to the COVID crisis. If I see from Brussels, this is happening, because I can tell you, even comparing the previous crisis in 2008, now we have much better coordination involving our commissioners, our governments, our parliamentarians, and this is making a difference. So I think we need to build on this, but of course we want more. Pia is completely right. We want more. And this requires stronger progressive leadership, and particularly from women. That's why it's so important to have this discussion right now. My idea about what we should push to have more is, first of all, about saving lives, of course, making sure that the vaccine, when this is discovered, this is really made a global public good, European and global public good. We cannot have vaccine nationalism. We need to have universal access to the vaccine. This is the first point. Secondly, we need to make sure that there is really universal access to healthcare. And now we are pushing for a new concept, which is a health union. All European citizens should have the same fundamental rights to healthcare. The third point is the access to care services. And I know that you have focused a lot on this issue. This is one of the big last taboos regarding gender equality, because we have a completely unbalanced situation. But what we know is that care services are a key pillar of all societies, and they need to be organized in a radical different way. Dignifying this work, this is a vital work, giving decent conditions to all the workers there, and also making sure there is a fair division of labor among women and men about this. They should have the same responsibilities for this fundamental pillar of our societies. Then there is another important priority where we need to push more, is about social protection. Because now we see that our welfare systems, our social protection systems, they need to be updated to protect citizens from different risks, new risks. And look, our concern, of course, is also about saving jobs. Starting with the working conditions, we need to have healthy conditions in our jobs, and also decent conditions whenever we work online, because more and more people are also working online or hybrid. But we also need to save jobs when they are being destroyed, because the COVID crisis is destroying many jobs. So we need to protect them. We have now a great new measure at European level called SURE, which is financing companies to keep their jobs as much as possible. This is a big European umbrella. But on the other hand, we also need to invest in new jobs with more future. And that's why our Retool word in this conference is so important, because look, this is not only about recovery. We'll never go back to the situation we had in the past. We need to transform our societies. This was the point made by Pia. And so we need to have a vision about a different kind of society with much deep well-being. I like very much the so-called One Health principle, something we women, we understand particularly well, because it's to be in a harmonious relationship with our close relationship, but also with nature, with the planet. And so the green transition should be based on this vision. And we need to also use the digital transformation, providing better solutions for all citizens. Well, this is the vision we are now translating into a European recovery plan, which was agreed upon with a big push from progressives. But now comes the big difficulty for us. Because we want this recovery plan and transformation plan to work for all citizens in Europe, wherever they are, to all regions, to all citizens. And let me tell you, we are not there yet. And this is about European solidarity. But let me be clear, because I think there is a new concept of European solidarity. This is not just giving some further financial resources to the lagging behind regions. No, this should be based in a clear concept of European citizenship. All of us, we are European citizens. I can even tell you, when I present a proposal of European Pillar of Social Rights, some political actors were saying, Maria, you should just focus on Eurozone. Social rights just for Eurozone. And I said, no way, never. This must be for all European citizens, belonging or not belonging to the Eurozone. And at the beginning, I had many people against me. You should know this. But then we won. And we could, in fact, proclaim the European Pillar of Social Rights for all citizens. So this opens a new chapter in European history, I believe, because this means that the next European budget should ensure that the European Pillar of Social Rights is implemented everywhere. All the rights are referred to health, to education, to training, and so on. Right now, we are completing a very difficult negotiation. This is an historical moment for the European Union because we agreed on this concept. But in order to finance such a budget, we need to have a major innovation for the first time in European history, which is to issue common debt. Well, I'm sure that Virgilio will speak about this more in detail, so I'm not coming to this now. But just to tell you that this is still not guaranteed. We need to make sure that this issue of debt will be backed by own resources. And this also depends on decisions of the national parliaments. So this is a defining moment for the history of the European Union. I'm concluding by saying the following. What matters now is to create a big push coming from the bottom to the top decision-making process. And we can do this by discussing in each country what should be the recovery plan for this country. I can tell you, usually I'm speaking from Brussels, but today I'm speaking from my hometown, the other part of the continent, Lisbon. I'm right now in Lisbon. And you should know this, we have a socialist government. We are completing our recovery plan to be presented in Brussels over the next weeks. So I'm telling you that because I think it's very important in all countries, this democratic process take place. How to use the European budget to come up with a good recovery plan in each country. So we need a much deeper democracy. And most of all, we need leadership from progressives and women. So, and I'm concluding by saying why I think it's so important to empower women about this. I see three main reasons. The first is because they are being discriminated. There are still many social inequalities. And we are half of humankind. We are not just a minority, we are half. Okay, so something is wrong. Secondly, because women, they have a particular expertise on all these issues of the health, of the care, of the well-being. And third, because they have a special, not only knowledge, but sensibility to this, to a new concept of well-being, which is the concept which will work in our societies of the 21st century. So definitely we need a feminist Europe. And I conclude like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maria, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, because working on the mobile is not so easy. Thank you for your remarks, and thank you in particular for concluding your interesting contribution, speaking of a feminist Europe. And this is not only new wording, but it is new concept. And we have to learn to elaborate new concept in order to have a new Europe. And so stop discrimination, expertise, special sensitivity, because we have the right concept of well-being, not only for women, for all society. Now, I'm happy to give the floor to Virgilio, Pier Virgilio D'Astoli. Pier Virgilio is very well known in most parts of Europe, but I'm not sure that he is so well known in Central and Eastern Europe. So let me say two words about him. Pier Virgilio is the president of the European Italian movement, but what I want to stress is that he worked for ages with Altiero Spinelli, one of the founding fathers of Europe. And I think that the name Altiero Spinelli is familiar to all of us. And when we entered the building of the European Parliament, Altiero Spinelli building is welcoming us. So I'm so happy that Pier Virgilio is being one of us in this Korčula school. And I hope this is the first session of a future continuous cooperation. Welcome, Virgilio. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Grazie a te,
Yeah.
grazie a te, moltissime grazie.
Yeah.
Now,
Thank you. Yeah.
Virgilio.
Yeah. You hear me?
Oh, very well, yes.
Yeah.
Very well.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you very much, Pia.
And I'm not finished to introduce you, not
No,
yet.
sorry.
No. No, I'm sure that Virgilio has a lot to say on Europe, but I would like, after a chat with Dasha, I would like that you address a specific topic on which we know you have been working a lot and committing yourself a lot. And I'm thinking of the conference on the future of Europe. I think that all of us know about this conference, which was a proposal of the European Parliament, of the European Commission, announced last year, and then the COVID arrived, and so everything was blocked. But it seems that we are almost there in retaking this project into consideration and the project to go ahead. Can you tell us about this conference and how the new situation created by the COVID can give new reasons for this conference, also considering and putting together the new decisions about new tools. Maria hinted to it, the common debt or the sure instrument, so that you can give us an all-encompassing vision of what this conference will be and what we hope this future Europe will be, also considering one aspect, the involvement of civil society in addressing these issues and in participating and playing a role in this conference. Now, the floor to you. Thank you, Virgilia, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Pia, for this introduction, and thank to the Chair and the Dasha to organize this event in Korčula. For me, the fact that I participate in the school of Korčula is very important from a personal point of view, because Altiero Spinelli went many times in Korčula for different seminars when he was leader of the European Federalists, but also when he was commissioner. When we met many times also Milovan Gilas and other intellectuals in Korčula, and he spoke with me many times about these seminars in Korčula. So for me, it's very important from a sensitive point of view, the fact that we are together even online in Korčula. Second point, I think that as Maria Joao said, we are living in a very difficult situation. We are living in a very difficult situation, at least for three reasons. First reason is a financial reason. The agreement on the multi-annual financial framework is very, 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 very difficult. There is a position that I support strongly of the European Parliament. The European Parliament think that the agreement reached by European Council on the multi-annual financial framework in many European programs giving to the citizens common or public goods was not good. And as you know, the agreement reached in the European Council on the recovery plan for the moment is only a political agreement. We need ratification from national parliaments. We need ratification of all resources. We need a lot of things, and the discussion is very, very, very difficult. So I think that we have to explain to the citizens that the situation is difficult. The second point is the point concerning the discussion on the future of Europe. Ursula von der Leyen dedicated 30 words in her State of the Union speech on the conference of the future of Europe. 30 words on 15 pages. She said that one of the reasons of the conference is to discuss about the competencies on health competencies, but we know very well on the things that we are discussing in this school that there are a lot of things that must open the way on the future of Europe. Only one example. You know that in the article of the Treaty of Lisbon, it said that the Council should decide on unanimous vote concerning the question of non-discrimination for sex and the other kind of discriminations. And we know very well that the fact that the unanimous vote is one of the things that block the future of Europe. But there are also other things concerning the share of competencies between the European Union and the member state. And one of these things is the title dedicated to the social dimension. Third point that is difficult, I agree on the importance of the social pillar adopted in Gothenburg, but we know very well that a right is a thing that is juridical binding. And I am expecting that the European Commission will use the social pillar not only to announce action plans. The Commission presented in January a communication speaking about action plans, and Ursula von der Leyen in her speech on the State of the Union said that next year the Commission will present other action plans concerning the social dimension. Ursula von der Leyen announced 27 juridical measures, but between these 27 juridical dimensions, there is no juridical dimension concerning the entering force of the Gothenburg social pillar. There is only one point in which Ursula von der Leyen announced a binding text that concerns a very important point concerning the violence against the women. And we know very well that one of the things that the women supported during the pandemic is the growth of violence. So we know very well, and I think that the European Parliament should push the Commission to modify the letter that Ursula von der Leyen sent to the Council and to the Parliament concerning the fact that we need a social pillar that will become a binding text and not only a political declaration. Concerning the conference on the future of Europe, the conference is born before the pandemic. And now the thing is that because we speak about restart, recovery, and retool, I think that we have to think about a system in which the conference should be a place, a public place, in which there is the accountability and the capacity to deliver. And I'm not so sure that the conference is a place that could have accountability and the capacity to deliver. I strongly support the decision of the Parliament of the 15th of January, in which the Parliament say we have to play a leading role. Leading role of the European Parliament means that the European Parliament should play a kind of constituent role. That is the only way in which we can open the way to modify the treaties, because discuss on the future of Europe means discuss also to modify the treaties in the points in which the European Union is too weak. From my point of view, that is my last point, we have to establish two kinds of different alliances. The first alliance is between the representative democracies. I suggest, and I suggest to the Portuguese government that will have the presidency next year, that we have to think about the possibility to convoke interparliamentarian assises, as we made in Rome in '90, in which we can put in the same hemicycle people coming from national parliaments and European Parliament to discuss, first of all, about their own resources, because we know very well that in their own resources, the European Parliament has no right, but the national Parliament has the right to decide. And in 2013, the national parliaments dedicated 2.5 years to adopt their own resources. So my opinion is that to put the national parliament and European Parliament in the same hemicycle to discuss together about the budget and their own resources. And the second point is to discuss together about the future of Europe, to prepare in a good way the conference on the future of Europe. That means create a meeting, a place in which the people coming from the same political groups in the national parliaments and the European Parliament could meet and discuss together about their common point of view about the future of Europe. So I think that it could be very important to put together the representative democracies at the national and European level. And the parliament, that is the last point, are the only body that could establish a good relationship, a good dialogue with civil society. The European Parliament could organize Agora on the future of Europe, that is put in the rules of the Parliament, the Agora. So I suggest that the Parliament will organize Agora with the citizens and civil society, and not only consult the citizens online on random. We need a system in which the citizens could empower. Empower don't mean to organize consultations. So I suggest to organize Agora. I suggest that we organize Agora in a transnational kind of debate. I am very aware about the risk that we fragmentate the debate on the future of Europe in 27 national debates. The debate on the future of Europe should be European, should be transnational. And so I think that the European Parliament and the national parliaments could work together to assure that this debate should be a European debate and not 27 national debates. So I think that from this point of view, the European Parliament should retool the conference of the future of Europe that is born before the pandemic. So we have to think if 2 years of debate with the urgency that we have at European level is the good way to change the course of Europe. So I think that in the next weeks, the European Parliament could rename, if I can say so, its position concerning the future of Europe, and ask to the Commission and the national parliament to open the way to a real modification and a real change of Europe. And in this framework, of course, the role of the women will be very, 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 very important, because the women could change the course. And as it is written in the paper concerning the women, the position, the women could empower at European level. We are now in the year 2020. We wrote in the 2015 that it was important to empower the role of women. We are not there. There are a lot of things to do because the women are all kind of engagement by the Commission to go in this direction. Thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. I couldn't hear you in the last words. As I told you, Virgilio is a volcano of ideas and proposals. I do not want to comment it because it would take ages to comment all that he said, but let me stress the idea of transnational debate, referring to parliaments, working together, national parliaments and European Parliament, but most of all, in my opinion, parliaments and civil society working together at this transnational dimension. Now, let me give the floor to Marta Sigeti Bonifert, who is the Hungarian Women's Business of the Hungarian Women Business Association and member of the International Board of CE Gender Network. Marta, in this scenario, what is the room reserved to environment and climate change issues and policies? In this month, we are speaking of the green transitions, and it's a constant presence of this term in all discussions. What in this general environment, what is the role that women can play in having to deal with this green transition? Can we and are we playing a role in this? Thank you, Mata, for addressing us.
Thank you very much, Pia. Thank you very much, all the panelists and participants. I can't say it's a pleasure to be here in my living room instead of but let's
You're
hope
right.
so in the coming years, we will also meet face to face. Allow me that I have changed the title of my so-called presentation, and I can see that some of you have done almost the same, because we talk about recovery, we talk about reshape, not restart, because I don't want to restart the business as usual as we had before, but reshape and then retool. But there is one more, is reskill. Because if you do not have for the recovery the right shape, the right tools, and the right skills, there will not be a recovery that we are thinking about. So here, one of my suggestions is to have one more R, to have a proper transformation instead of transition, because we need transformation. Transition is gone. We will need to reshape and rethink about it. We always started our presentations for many, many years about the mega trends that are affecting us and all the do's and don'ts. But let's think about 8 billion people almost living on this planet. And until the pandemics, we didn't think about how vulnerable the 8 billion people almost are across. And it doesn't make any difference whether you are a president or a king of a country, or whether you are a poor citizens living in the slums. Once something hits you, it hits you equally. And we are not prepared. So one of my messages when we talk about risk and global risk report that was coming out at the beginning of this year by the World Economic Forum, it talks about likelihood of categories and the impacts. From the 10 most important ones, 6 of them, both on likelihood as well as impact, are related to environment. Whether we like it or not, we are talking about extreme weather. We talk about climate failure, natural disasters, biodiversity loss, human-made environmental disasters. And as an impact, we also have a new one coming up, which is infectious diseases. So we have to start to think slightly differently out of the box. And what you see about the importance, it was also seen between global shapers and also of multi-stakeholder surveys, that slowly but gradually, environment became one of the most important factors as of 2019, 2020, both for the likelihood as well as when you think about the impact. Out of the impact, 2/3 are very much related to environment, a little bit about geopolitical, and also of societal. Because these are the issues that are going to be staying with us. When we look at the short-term risk outlook, multi-stakeholders are saying 78% economic confrontation, 78% domestic political polarization, 77% extreme heat waves, destruction of the ecosystem, 76%, a cyber attack, 76%. When you look at the global shapers, also short-term risk outlook, extreme heat waves, 88%, destruction ecosystem, 87%, health impacts, 87%, water crisis, 86%, uncontrolled fires, 79%. So in short-termism, it is, as we can say, a hot issue. I have to say that when we look how we respond as human beings, I told to Dasha a couple of hours ago that we look at Maslow's needs theory, because human beings are driven by addressing their needs. The lower order needs, like physical needs, of shelter, of food, of safety and security needs, and belongingness. Higher order needs is self-actualization, esteem needs. The issue is presently with the crisis that we live in an environmental fear. Whether we are afraid of the pandemics or migration, it is fear. So it goes into the safety and security needs that are described by the Maslow theory. So whatever we will be doing, I think we should be addressing most of the responses to deal with it at global, at regional, at local level. There is one very important issue, what I like very much about the European Union, not only about solidarity, but also subsidiarity, that it goes down and addresses local communities and goes bottom up and top down. And I think that we never talked about subsidiarity during the past years. And I think it's an important message that we should also bring into it. Now, when we look into where we are as human beings, we undergone an agricultural revolution, and it helped the population growth and emerging of cities. Then we had the industrial and increased productivity tremendously. Then we went into the digital revolution, spreading of new information. We are in the digital. But what I am looking for in the Green New Deal or the Green Deal is the sustainability revolution, because organization of the economy around new forms of zero emission, healthy, equitable, and sustainable growth. And I think that this is why one of the messages that came out 5 years ago with the Sustainable Development Goals and the 17 goals, where all the global presidents and decision makers united. But you know, the devil always lies in the implementation. And I have to say that they ratified it, they put it into action, but until we show, and here is one of my messages, that Europe was always taking the lead. I think when we are showing the lead around the long-term recovery strategy that was announced on May 27, 2020, and the package that is allocated to it, I think it's the Green Deal, the single market, the unemployment reassurance, the skill and digital education agenda. And I will be stressing throughout my presentation the education agenda as part of the social stabilization and the social pillar. So I think that to build this resiliency and make Europe carbon neutral by 2050, there are strategic packages that need to be adopted, and it needs to be cross-cutting many economic sectors, industries, agriculture, energy, infrastructure, and investment plans. But I don't going to go into the policy areas from biodiversity, farm to fork, we were supposed to be talking about it, or sustainable agriculture, energy, industry, mobility. But I would like to say that, as Franz Timmermans said, the Green Deal is our growth strategy with 3 things: Green Deal, digitalization, and increasing our resilience. And I think that this is one of the most important elements, that there will be many people who are going to be looking at how it's going to be done. And here, Dasha, Virgilio, and myself, we are part of the European Ambition 2030. And I'm sure Dasha is going to be, as the president of the initiative, is going to talk a little bit more about it. But we need to have a transformational strategy that includes all the stakeholders, that is based on regionality and dialogue, and to rebuild the trust, because nothing is going to be happening if the people, I'm sorry to say, are not buying into it. So we have to address it. That is, looking at the Maslow theory, is building up trust and also helps to build a more secure Europe for all of us. So one of the issues that came up from the ILO study earlier this year, they were saying that as we go into this green recovery, there will be phasing out of jobs. We all know that. But there will be many new jobs coming in. But they will be needing a very different skill set. So here comes my message when it comes to women. We need to be building much more into training women to be able to address future labor market needs. And here I would love to hear more about the different policies, the equipment, the opportunities, and the systems and the partnership built with ILO, with business, with a different kind of groups that are addressing already education training in a digitalized world. I think that would be a very important opportunity, especially that if we see how much the top 10 skills have changed during the past 5 years. We had 4 new ones coming in: cognitive flexibility, emotional intelligence, critical thinking. And also there was one more, which is related to, not coordinating others, but mostly focusing on how flexibility is built into the system. So expand ability to operate in a fully digital environment, cognitive skills, strengthening social and emotional skills, building adaptability is going to be our future for many years to come. And here I think that we have to take into consideration what Charles Darwin said a couple of decades ago, that in the way of evolution, not always the smartest and the strongest survived, but the one who was able to adapt the best way. So my message is that in our world, women are very flexible, very adaptable, but they need skills. And I do hope that policymakers and partners across Europe and the world will be helping to enhance and to build more skills that women would be enabled to address the future labor market needs. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hear you.
Okay, because I feel I'm muted, so good. I think that Marta told us words as heavy as stones, which get us to reflect a lot. Words like fear, like need of safety and security, transformational strategy, trust, and help to build more secure Europe, a very intense message. But she also made us relevant to us 2 words: solidarity, which is a quite common word in our world, but also another word, subsidiarity, which is not so common in our speeches. And these words brings me to underline a message which we received in the chat by Sonia. As we insisted on transnational discussion and meetings, Sonia Locker, whom we know very well, wants to stress the need also of discussions at national level. Otherwise, there will be many people to be cut out in this raising awareness on these topics and be less prepared for really behave as European citizens, because being citizens of Europe means a lot to all of us. So thank you for the suggestion from Sonia. There is also another contribution from Natasha, but I will leave this contribution to Dasha, when Dasha will address us. So I will aim to Natasha's message later. Now, let me give the floor to Lovorka Marinovic, who is the president of Center Zanove Initiative and also member of the International Board of CE Gender Network. Lovorka is an expert on migration, and I would like to ask her to elaborate on mainly on two topics. Although there is a lack of reliable data, there is a significant number of migrant women migrating from Eastern and Central Europe to Western Europe working as care workers, which is a subject we discussed a lot in these 2.5 days. And not only as care workers, but also as workers specifically in the health sector, nurses from Eastern and Central Europe coming to Italy and creating a sort of a care drain in that region. Can you tell us something about this, Lovorka? And another topic I would like you to touch. Last week, the Commissioner for Home Affairs, the Swedish Johansson, one of our comrades, presented the proposal for a new pact on migration and asylum, which to me appears a step ahead, but a too short step. I fear that once more we are focusing on asylum seekers, but the majority of people who are on the move, migrant people, are mainly economic migrants. So I would like you, Lovorka, to address these two topics, but also addressing the topic you want to address. Thank you.
Thank you, Pia, and hello to everybody. I'm glad to be in this panel together with so strong panelists. As I'm coming from this region, and I will continue to speak in Croatian language, so I kindly ask you if you can click on interpretation, as I will continue in Croatian language, as I said. Is it okay? Da li me čujete? Da li prevođenje štima? Je, dobro. Pa ja bih počela samo sa jednom konstatacijom koju svi znamo, da je u ožujku ove godine proglašena pandemija koronavirusa i da je to dovelo do velikih restrikcija, tako da su na vidjelo izašla sve društvene nejednakosti, a tema koja je do tog trenutka bila na vrhu interesa medija, javnosti i političara u našoj regiji se izgubila i migranti sa svojim problemima su postali nevidljivi. O njima se ne govori, a ako se ispominju, onda je to u negativnom kontekstu. Stroži migracijski režimi u većini zemalja ograničili su, a ponegdje i zaustavili migracije. Ograničenja preko graničnih migracija i kretanja, ali isto tako i unutar granica, što se desilo u Hrvatskoj, i uvođenje karantenskih mjera naglo su zaustavili i međunarodne i nacionalne i migracije unutar i kretanje unutar granica jedne države. Zbog zatvaranja tih državnih granica pokazalo je koliko je današnja globalna ekonomija ili pojedine nacionalne ekonomije ovise o stranim radnicima, migrantima. I djelatnosti koje su bile posebno ugrožene su zdravstvena i socijalna skrb, gdje najviše upravo rade žene, zatim građevinarstvo, poljoprivreda, samo trenutak, građevinarstvo, poljoprivreda, uslužne djelatnosti, hoteljerstvo, turizam i tako dalje. Države su se različito snalazile, pa je recimo Austrija organizirala posebne vlakove za prevoz zdravstvenih radnika iz Rumunije u Austriju. Međutim, sve te djelatnosti su djelatnosti koje nije moguće raditi od kuće, jer svi smo prešli na online poslove. I time su radnici koji obavljaju poslove u ovim sektorima u još većoj opasnosti od zaraze ovim novim virusom. Od početka pandemije, restrikcije i karantene radnici migranti, sezonski radnici i radnici koji prelaze dnevno granice da bi radili u nekoj, kao što je recimo slučaj iz Hrvatske u Sloveniju, suočeni su sa prijetnjom otkazivanja posla, nemogućnosti da obave posao, pa su suočeni sa siromaštvom i različitim bolestima s kojima se mogu suočiti. Danas jako ovisimo o mobilnosti i razvijenim zemljama su potrebni radnici migranti, pa se te zemlje moraju suočiti sa ograničenom ponudom radne snage. Ono što bih još naglasila je da je velik broj migranata, izbjeglica i tražitelja azila zadnjih mjeseci ostao u državama naše regije, jer su zbog ograničenja kretanja, a i drugih mjera na smanjenju širenja pandemije odustali od pokušaja odlaska u zapadnoevropske države, jer njima nije u interesu i ne žele ostati u državama regije i zatražiti azil. Tu bi postavlja se jedno pitanje kad razmatramo kakva je situacija i kako su smješteni ti migranti, je da li su migranti zarobljeni na Balkanu, postali taoci pandemije ili su oni u stvari taoci državnih sustava u našim državama. Zašto to postavljam pitanje? Zato što mjere koje su se donosile su bile pojedinačne i prouzrokovale su niz problema. Migranti su nestali, kao što sam rekla, iz vidokruga i interesa, ali i dalje žive u uvjetima u kojima su više izloženi zarazi. Migranti dolaze iz Turske preko Grčke, u kojoj su, kao što svi znamo, kampovi prenapučeni, imaju vrlo loše uvjete za život, zdravstvena zaštita ne funkcionira i sve to povećava mogućnost zaraze. Kampovi u Srbiji su na kapacitetu od 6.000 ljudi, a tamo je smješteno 9.000 ljudi. Dodatno te kampove čuva vojska, nije dozvoljen ulazak nevladinim organizacijama u kampove i kao niti prevoditeljima. U Bosni i Hercegovini su vlasti odlučile da prebace jedan broj migranata iz jednog kampa u drugi bez njihove privole, znači prisilno. Otvorili su novi kamp u blizini hrvatske granice, što su opravdavali time da je to hitna mjera kako bi se spriječila širenje zaraze. U gradovima i naseljima blizu granice, ne samo u Bosni i Hercegovini, recimo u Srbiji, u Vojvodini, migranti žive po parkovima, šumama, napuštenim kućama, skrivaju se od policije i čekaju trenutak da pređu granicu i odu u zapadnu Europu. Hrvatske vlasti nastoji spriječiti taj nelegalni i nezakonit ulazak migranata, a civilne i humanitarne organizacije, kako hrvatske, tako i međunarodne, prozivaju upravo hrvatsku policiju za nehumano ponašanje prema migrantima koji pokušavaju preko granice ući u Hrvatsku. Izbjeglice spadaju u najosjetljivije marginalizirane društvene skupine, a još su ugroženije upravo u ovo vrijeme pandemije. Povećani rizik pripisuje se i ograničenom pristupu zdravstvenim ustanovama. Hrvatski zavod za javno zdravstvo svrstava tražitelje azila i izbjeglice u prioritetnu skupinu za testiranje. Međutim, u hrvatskim prihvatilištima njima jeste osiguran stalni zdravstveni nadzor, ali u posebnom problemu su radnici migranti u Hrvatskoj, jer pogotovo oni koji su ostali bez posla, jer kako je izjavio naš ministar zdravlja, oni će u slučaju liječenja sami morati platiti svoje troškove liječenja. Tako da se postavlja pitanje što će biti s onima koji ne mogu platiti liječenje. Društvena nejednakost je postala vidljiva i među djecom, posebno migrantima, kod provođenja nastave online i razotkrila je sve nemogućnosti da ta djeca sudjeluju u nastavi. Posebna skupina ugrožena su i žrtve trgovanja ljudima, a znamo da je najviše žrtava trgovanja žena koje se iskorištavaju u seksualne svrhe dolazi iz istočne Europe u zapadnu Europu. One su inače slabo vidljive u našim društvima u svakodnevnom normalnom, da tako nazovem, životu, a sada su postale još nevidljivije i problemima sa kojima se nose još teži, a to su iskorištavanje, prisila i ropstvo. Sve ovo utječe na fizičko i mentalno zdravlje migranata. Govorili smo, ranije je govoreno upravo o zdravlju i kako ga napraviti, kako ga strukturirati, ali mentalni poremećaj, naročito posttraumatski stresni poremećaj, često su zastupljeni upravo kod izbjeglica i migranata, a pandemija je potencirala postojeću anksioznost, naročito jer migranti nemaju adekvatan pristup zdravstvenoj zaštiti. Zbog toga ne čudi da je u zadnjih 1 do 10 dana došlo do velikih tuča u kampu u Bosni i Hercegovini, gdje su među migrantima sudjelovalo oko 100 migranata u toj tuči, gdje su 2 migranata nastradale. Ako imamo mi svi pravo na život i zdravlje, onda to imaju i migranti. I zdravstvena zaštita tih skupina bi trebala biti osigurana i uključena u sve politike. Učinkovita borba i suzbijanje pandemije moguće je jedino ako su pripadnici svih društvenih skupina jednako zaštićeni. Niti jedna država ne može sama rješavati problem migracija, bez obzira koliko moćna ona bila, jer je to složeno pitanje i zemlje jednostavno moraju surađivati jer ovise jedna o drugoj. 5 godina nakon migrantske krize 2015. godine, Europska komisija iz iskustva neuspjeha svoje politike kvota koju je htjela primijeniti za prihvat izbjeglica, koja nije saživjela, 23.9. predstavila pakt o azilu i migracijama. Cilj pakta je da se uspostavi dugoročni sustav upravljanja migracijama i on bi trebao zamijeniti dosadašnji sustav koji je, kao što sam rekla, bio neučinkovit. Ono što pakt propagira i nastoji je da provode zakonito useljavanje, potiče se dobrovoljni povrat useljenika, učinkovitije se trebaju nadzirati granice, da se izradi europski okvir za azil koji bi se implementirao u nacionalnim zakonodavstvima i da se uspostavi sveobuhvatno partnerstvo sa zemljama koje nisu članice Europske unije. Kad sam slušala predstavljanje tog pakta, podsjetilo me na moj posao 90-ih godina kad sam radila u Međunarodnoj organizaciji za migracije, jer smo slične programe mi imali upravo za rješavanje problema izbjeglica u Hrvatskoj, Srbiji i ostalim državama u regiji. Ono što pak dodatno i jako naglašava je solidarnost i ravnomjerna podjela odgovornosti, a cilj je da bude osnova za politike Europske unije o migracijama i azilu u duhu zajedničke odgovornosti i solidarnosti. Ono što bih još naglasila je da je razumijevanje migracije i provedba uspješne migracijske politike mora uzeti u obzir sve vrste migracija koje su izazvane i ratom, i klimatskim promjenama, i kružne, cirkularne, i nezakonite, sve. I međutim, iako smo sve više svjesni da uzroci i posljedice migracije imaju i rodnu dimenziju, pokušaj da se rodna dimenzija uvrsti u politiku migracija još uvijek nije dovoljna. Razumijevanje migracija upravo iz rodne perspektive je neophodno, a da bismo ih razumjeli moramo sagledati pozitivne i negativne učinke na pojedince, jer različita su iskustva.
Lovorka,
Yes?
Lovorka, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you summarize? We are risking of running
Yes.
out of time.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
I am finishing. Znači, trebamo jačati rodno osviještenu politiku sustavnim uključivanjem rodne perspektive u sve faze oblikovanja migracijskih politika na svim područjima i moramo uvesti nove alate, nove mehanizme i nove instrumente. Moramo biti solidarni, odgovorni, moramo surađivati, ali ne samo suradnja država unutar Europske unije, nego suradnja sa državama van Europske unije, sa trećim državama, sa državama porijekla, ali i sa samim migrantima. Ta suradnja mora biti posebno naglašena. Rješenje treba tražiti u multidisciplinarnoj pristupu, a da bi izašli iz ove pat pozicije, ne možemo se vratiti na nekadašnju, nazovimo to, mirnu realnost, već je moramo ponovo izgraditi. A tu veliku ulogu trebaju igrati upravo progresivne i socijaldemokratske stranke i pokreti kojima mi pripadamo. Hvala.
Thank you, Lovorka, also for being understandable towards my request. I'm sorry, but we are saying so many interesting things that it's hard to stop. Now, we have still 10 minutes, and I would like to give the floor to Dasha. But before giving the floor to Dasha, I think Tamara Tripic asked for the floor. And okay, so the floor to Tamara and then to Dasha, to whom I would like to consider a request by Natasha, who asks for how can we manage in achieving our goals if countries are led by people like Orban, Vučić, Borisov, and others. Okay, now Tamara.
Thank you. Actually, thank you for your very inspirative introductions and opening and raising of so many important questions. I must say now that in this period we are aware, and now more than ever we are globally living kind of a hologram of basic values of modern progressive society. We are not living the values we have achieved. I think actually we have defined the borders of a freedom and human and social rights, but we are now living the lack of substance of those rights. Actually, listening all the sessions these couple of days, I wrote down some key words for the recover and restart and retool that we need the most. And those are new mechanisms, cohesion, solidarity, peace between private and public sector, security, building trust, new patterns of work, awareness of responsibility, and that future is already here. In one word, we have to start that phrase, let's walk the talk. Thank you.
And now the floor to Dasha, to whom I would like to address a specific request. Most of us, not all, but most of us are involved in parties' activities as militant, as leaders, covering positions. And in these years, all over Europe, I feel the presence of worrying attitudes and feeling, lack of confidence, disbeliefs in parties. And it seems that parties are in great difficulties to reach out people. Dasha, in your concluding remarks, can you also address this topic, also considering the contribution of Natasha about the role of certain prime ministers who are also party leaders are performing? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. First, thank you, Pia, for making the effort to moderate in these circumstances. And thank you very much, Maria Joao, for being with us. It's a pleasure having somebody from Lisbon. I wish I were in Lisbon at this point. And in Korčula, of course, but next year we'll reserve that. I would like to just say that, Maria Joao, we have informed the European Directorate for the social pillar and also their network of all this discussion, because we are part of it, and we look forward to building on it, because if you look at the social pillar, it's something that needs to be built up, and especially built up as we unpack what is happening now, and insert these fine-tunings, I would say, on all the points that are there, whether it's labor or whether it's care. On Pier Virgilio, you actually warmed my heart. I'll tell you why. Because the concept, when the whole idea about having the Korčula school precisely came out of the Praxis school that Spinelli was at. Because we felt the need to have a regional space where we can debate equality and looking at gender equality from the and the progressive and ideological situation at this point. And that's how we actually started conceptualizing the school. So thank you so much for reminding us of that, because that was the time when the whole idea of what communism, socialism, social democracy, and so on was debated among free thinkers, people who were out of the box, who could actually bring it. And that's where, and I'd like to thank all the colleagues today, because the discussion was extremely rich. We actually set ourselves a very tall order. The tall order is, the more you go into it, the more you see that you need, or the more you see that you want to address. So I think as a follow-up, there will be a lot of stuff where we can actually go and hone into specific issues, so that we bring around this table people who are working on it. I would only like to make 3 general points. The first point is that I think the general opinion during these 2 days was that we think that unlike 2008, the European Commission and the European family is trying to act, is taking initiative. And however much we see the shortcomings, there has been movement, and that movement is welcome. And that movement has also been within our own family. within that relationship, I think it came up today between the group in the parliament, the Party of European Socialists, the FEPS, the Solidar of this world, and others, where we are trying to actually work on joint policies. And you, Maria Rodriguez, you're also running the network in PES. So that mutual exchange and coordination has been seen as very important. And Virgilio, I think your point on the role of the parliaments as we go forward, and the relationships that the European parliamentarians can actually build with national level is extremely important, and we will convey this to our colleagues working there. Now, on the general point, one thing that was permeating but didn't really get fully articulated is that question that is bugging especially the transition countries. And that is the neoliberal model that was introduced in the transition process on one hand, but that also entailed a big discussion. And I remember a number of even UN publications on the topic, is the death of the state. We've killed the state. We are going into a new mode of the private sector. And therefore the state should be smaller. You know, the concept, the Republican American concept of having a small state and having a free hand. And I think that has now brought us into a situation, whether it's in Italy with the hospitals full during the pandemic, where people with, I would say, regular diseases cannot enter, with a sort of, so we need a balance. We need to rethink that relationship and that balance between what is really the role and the responsibility of the state to its citizens, and how then can the private sector be the engine, if I can say so, the economic engine behind all that, and therefore and have that type of social and public responsibility. And we've had given up on that, and we are now living the consequences of this imbalance, which was an ideological balance to start with. The second thing is what I think Sonia, and I will actually plagiarize a lot of the discussion, was Sonia was saying about the welfare system, which lost its instruments and lost its capacities, and the battle. If you look at the budgets, the battle has always been to actually have a people-centered budget, a gender-sensitive budget, a budget that will not be, as you said, Sonia, spent on airplanes in this situation, like in Croatia, but a budget that will actually be there for the people and what we need. And it's interesting, somebody brought in, I think Ina in our last discussion brought in very pertinently the question of the social dimension of education. You know, it's very good that we propagate a digital economy, and now everybody's hooking up to it. You know, if you want to invest in digital economy. But the problem is that we are now seeing, particularly in our countries and in the region, with every fourth child living in poverty, we are seeing that children are unable to use these tools. They do not have access to the digital world or to the digital class. And Ina was actually telling us that 60% of students could not attend in North Macedonia, could not attend school because they didn't have the access. So, you know, yes, digital economy, yes, this is a digital revolution, but you know, we need to be able to cater for the different needs in our society. Now, on the parties, I would, well, we have a big problem, and I think the problem here is that parties in the region are quite weak, that we are having party crises, that we've had all the parliamentary elections, but somehow, and as somebody said, we are living the short term and not the longer and medium term. So what's really happening is looking at parties, looking at the daily politics of it, and not the longer term politics of it. So how do we translate all this into party action and party partnerships? Because with the civil society, because Sonia was talking about the bottom up, but it's always, you know, it's a toss. Yes, bottom up, but you also have to have up somebody who is going to take it forward, whether it's in parliament or anywhere. So that relationship between the bottom up and the up down, or is also very important, particularly in a political sense, of the activities of our parties and the way they're going to deal with this. Now, on the European side, I don't think our parties are doing enough to counter skepticism, which is on the rise in the region regarding the European Union. I think there's a lack of communication, but not a lack of communication that would be you know, in verbal top down, but rather that you know, there is a communication that is understood by the people. You know, we have all these Twitters and stuff overwhelming us, but we are unable to tell people what, you know, to address what really scratches people on the street. So everyday problems are on the job, the uncertainty, the anxiety is there. And I think Tamara said our ideas have become bureaucratic floscules. We repeat it, but we are unable to actually, you know, address it. And so I think communication is going to be very important. And on the bottom up, I think on gender, yes, there was a lot of pressure from the bottom up, and there is, and there should be, and we should organize around that. But until we manage to start at the political level, and the parliamentary level, at the legislative level, changing things didn't move. Finally, I would like to read what others have said. Mikael Lei in the last session said, we have at some point stopped being pragmatic. So it is not only a question to adapt to realities, but to shape them. And in that sense, what Marta was saying about Project Ambition Europe 2030 is important. But he also said we need to be bold and together to be able to weather the era of shocks, because there will be shocks. Marta, I think you were alluding to the looking at the bridge between you and Lovorka, the climate change shock, the environmental migration, so that will be it. Natasha Vučković said to us, we should not allow that a good crisis ends up in the garbage, and that we are living under a tyranny of short-term objectives at all levels. And this particularly, I think, now relates to the region. And so this discussion, I think, can be a start in trying to look at those other perspectives and longer-term perspectives. Natasha Milojevic raised the two questions of the word I'm not very happy about, but illiberal democracies. You know, what is the space? We are talking about civil society and democratic space, but what is the democratic space in Hungary at this point, or in Serbia at this point? You know, how can it's some of the leaderships, like in Bosnia and Herzegovina, are locked into their own internal disputes, and how do you break that log? So I think we are in front of a process. We also have to learn how to transform. you know, we all talk about we should do this and we should do that, and these are all transformational processes and so on and so forth. But do we really know how to do it? What are the steps for political parties to be, and for us as civil society to be able to transform? It's just not enough going out into the street. It is important, but it's not enough. So how do we take this process and develop the steps through which we should go, both technically but also politically? And that's where the political parties come into play. Yes, I think we should make an effort to have mini schools or mini discussions on each of these topics, because it's been extremely rich. Well, you know, thank you to all. I'm sorry if I've been too long, but I can't see anybody here anymore. Okay, over to you.
Yeah, here I am. No, I think that you have perfectly concluded this panel, which was really very rich, but I agree with you that every single item we have addressed needs a mini focus school. Well, this is a suggestion for future demanding work. And I think that could be that in the final panel of tomorrow, we can also give some suggestions about how to deal with this mini school, but we have to be able to focus also by devising the technical apart from political steps in order to be really transformative and giving our actions a political effectiveness. Happy to greet all of you. Now we have run a bit out of time, but I think it was worth doing it. Grazie mille a tutti. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. And
Ciao,
see you all tomorrow, 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very
Regional
much
discussion.
indeed.
Regional.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Grazie.
Cena
Ciao.
prima.
Ciao.